Hi there, back again. Okay, so just to continue, I better leave that up, I need to know the time. Just to continue on, I might just take them off because they're reflecting, where we left off, where I was handing over my power to that higher being, and he was whispering words of, trust me and go back, and that's exactly what I did. I actually trusted him, and I just thought, I'll go back and see what happens. I'd become a part of this church. I'd become a part of the church and done all these courses. So I was starting to do all these courses, and really, they're not always just about Christianity and the Jesus and the Bible. It's about how to do life practically. And that's what I needed. I needed how to do life practically, how to control this, not take every thought captive is what we were told. Don't let this emotional part of us run the show, which is what I was doing because I'd never been taught to manage it or contain it or, repressed deny and avoided it, and it came out sideways with a lot of energy behind it. So get up and do your dishes, do the right thing by yourself, learn to trust yourself. And I don't think I'd ever learnt to do that because I didn't feel like I was trusted. I never learnt to trust myself because whatever happens here is what happens in here. And so for me, it was this amazing journey where, you looked into the mirror of this higher being who just kind of loved you and was there for you and didn't judge you or criticize or, didn't put you down every 2 minutes. There was another window to look in, or a mirror to look in, reflecting something very differently to what I'd actually had seen or was doing to myself. So it was so freeing and refreshing and life affirming that as I kept looking in that mirror of unconditional love, I saw something different. And not only that, but it said, I have a plan and a purpose for you. And that's the first time I'd ever heard anyone ever say anything like that. I just thought I kind of came out into this life and defaulted into life and just kind of fell through life. It wasn't conscious in any shape or form. There was no choosing. It was all just kind of, I had chosen some things, but there wasn't any of self-efficacy or agency. I just went along with life by default in a way. And so I started to realize that I could choose who I wanted to be. I could be the person I actually wanted to be as opposed to the person I'd been conditioned to be. And I realized my head was very out of sync with my heart. So, I would chronic people pleaser, perfectionist. I was constantly feeling sort of anxious and insecure and judged and all of those things that you feel, and I was still feeling them, incredibly inferior, unintelligent. I felt very unimportant, very insignificant. And so I'm looking at this mirror and it's saying, you're all good and I've given you a purpose and a plan for your life. And my job was to figure out what that plan was. And it was just one of those times in your lives where it was just like miracles happened, magic happened. And the first big step for me was my sister phoned me and said, they're doing a open day on being a Samaritan. Now in the UK we call them Samaritans, here you call it a lifeline. And I remember watching a program years prior to this and I remember saying, I'm going to do that one day. I don't know why, I just said I'm going to do that one day. And there's my sister ringing me up going, there's an open day, do you want to come? Now, this is a big deal. I had a big job. I worked full time. I had 3 kids. So for me to get out and do anything was always a bit tricky. But I wanted to do it so much, I made it happen. And I went along. And there was a couple of hundred people there. It was a lot of people. And they talked to us about it. And I was like, I just felt this real compelling, I didn't know if I'd be any good at it, or I didn't even know if I could do it. But I just felt like I wanted to do it. So then they had another one that I went to, the following week or whenever, and there was like half the amount of people. So what they did was they told you everything about the role, and it kind of wheedled out all those people that really weren't invested or didn't really feel like they could do it or want to do it. And so then you went into a training period, and I think there was about 20 of us. And anyway, every week someone would disappear because they'd take them away and go, no, we don't really think you're cut out for this. So they had a very strict kind of training where they were very upfront. If they didn't think you would be any good doing it, they would just tell you and you would leave. And it was like being eliminated, and there was an elimination every week. So that was interesting because every week you thought, oh, am I going to be gone? Anyway, I got through, and there was only about 6 of us that actually made it out of all the people that kind of ended up starting the training. And I didn't know if I'd be any good at it. I didn't know if I could do it. I didn't know how I'd feel if I'm listening to people who are talking about, you know, they just want to take their own life. And the Samaritans in the UK, it's very pro freedom of choice. And so you weren't allowed to talk them out of it. You weren't allowed to guilt trip them. You just had to sit, listen, support, and, you know, maybe talk about why they'd got to that point. So you had to get on board with that, had to be part of your own value system. And it was for me, it was very much part of my own, you know, people have the freedom. And I had some, anyway, when I got up to the room and started talking to people, it was just incredible. And I absolutely loved it. And I didn't take it home, and I could do it. And yeah, sometimes it was challenging, but not the sort of challenging that I felt like I couldn't actually do. And so that was the start of my journey, and that was many moons ago now, gosh almighty, long time ago. And it was after doing that for a couple of years that I would talk to all the other people doing it, and we would obviously talk, and it got me on the sort of pathway to thinking about being a counsellor. So taking those skills and furthering my education. And when I was back in the UK, I actually started a certificate, a diploma in counselling, and I did it for a year, and I absolutely loved it. And of course, when you do anything like counselling, you learn more about yourself than you do about everybody else. And for me, I wasn't so much, I really want to help people. That really wasn't my goal. My goal was, I just loved it. I just got off on it. I just felt like it was the most interesting thing I'd ever done. And I really like people, and I really wanted to, I'm curious by nature, or, you know, in England we might call that nosy. And obviously something that was quite a natural for me to be very curious about people was considered invasive or intrusive or nosy, and I think it was always seen as a negative, but I actually realized it was a gift that I have that not everybody does have. A lot of people don't give a monkeys about anybody else, and that's fine. I'm not saying that's wrong, but I actually felt like I had this natural curiosity about people. You know, if I met someone, I'd kind of, you know, people gaze, you know, people watch, and I'd be like, I wonder what they do, and I wonder how they live their lives, I wonder if they're happy. And I was just very much naturally like that, and not for any other reason other than that I was just deeply curious. And of course I became very deeply curious about me. Why did I think the way I did? Why did I feel the way I did? Why did I behave the way I did? And of course I had a problem with anger, and I realized, you know, through doing the courses and learning all this stuff, I realized that, you know, I'd been taught repress, deny and avoid, and, you know, you compound that and then it gets very intense and it comes out sideways, like you can't keep holding that down. And when it did come out, it had all that energy behind it. And that's why I became like a rageaholic, because actually it was a way of processing, and I didn't realize I was doing that. I mean, you know, you're just brought up to not be angry and not be sad and be grateful and be happy and stop being so miserable. And you know, I realized my feelings were shame-based, and it's like the lights started to go on. And I'm probably more of a feeler, you know, some of us are feelers rather than thinkers, and I had to learn to use my brain, my mind, in a way that I hadn't before. So it was very interesting times for me starting down this pathway. But the catalyst was that sort of my midlife crisis, so to speak, which I had in my early 30s. So yeah, like nearly 30 years ago now. So it was amazing. And of course, my desire to learn, and halfway through that course in the UK, I came to Australia, and And then I looked for a college or a course or a uni where I could continue on that journey of being a therapist. So, and that's when I started studying. I went to uni and started studying, and I absolutely loved it. And I could only do it part-time because I was working full-time. I had 3 kids and a business, and things changed along the way. But as I learned all these skills and strategies and theories, and sat in uncomfortable places and had probably hundreds and hundreds of hours of therapy, because we all used to practice on each other in triads, I started to understand and know myself in a way that I never had before. And I started to realize why I did the things I did, and why I thought the way I thought. And of course, courses come along, and then you do a lot of professional development, and it was just an amazing time of growth, understanding, and I loved it. I absolutely loved my years. And to be fair, I didn't actually always know what I was going to do. I thought, oh well, we'll see. I mean, a lot of people went to uni and didn't get jobs, and I wasn't really worried about the job. I didn't even think about the job. I hadn't even thought about it. I was just too busy enjoying the process of studying and learning and growing. And I really did. The most amazing time, even now when I look back, was those years of study where it's like I was waking up, and I don't know, it was just amazing. And I absolutely was quite upset when it all ended. And that's why I did postgrad, did masters, because I just didn't want it to stop. I didn't want it to end. I wanted to learn more and more and more, and I wanted to do it better and better. I wanted to be someone that worked with excellence. I just don't want to be a good therapist. And I realized for me, being a good therapist meant doing my work, because I really believe you can't take anyone where you haven't been. And so my job was to go before, so I could have the privilege of taking others. And so I went into all those dark places and into those dungeon places where I'd rejected parts of myself and reconnected them, and used every therapy that I felt would be helpful for that, and learned so many therapies. And I took all the bits that I loved out of them, because I couldn't be a purist and you just do one. I just think that was that would have been too restricting for me. But I took all these bits and I developed my own way of working with people, and I developed strategies that not only helped me, and I help others learn what I had learned along the way. And really, the rest is history. And I'm in a place now where I feel like I do really know myself. And because I think everything is reflective. So if I know myself, then that can help me know another. That doesn't mean I know everything about them. Of course I don't. But I can help them understand that if they want to be the person they want to be, then they have to know thyself. And that's the journey of recovery of self. So you can understand why you are the way you are, what got you to the place you're at. Learn to rewire some of the conditioning you got very early on, because that's where the first 7 years is where you've been written on. That's where you were a blank slate and you've been written on. And if you don't actually change that, you don't change anything. You just keep repeating the same cycles. And I broke my own cycle, and I wanted to help others break their cycles. And I think that's not always easy. I think it's the hardest thing we do. And sometimes it comes up on the back of an addiction, a breakdown, a crisis, a death. It can come, a relationship issue, as mine did. So, yeah, it's been a roller coaster. And it never ends. It doesn't ever end. No one ever gets there. It's like you kind of spiral. So you hit the same mark sometimes, just at a different level. And I realise, we talk about onions and peeling the onions, and I think that's true. But it's more of a spiraling, because I know for me it's like, you do a bit of work and then you come back round and you're still hit with the same thing, but at a different level. And you think, well, I've done that. No, because you're spiraling all the time and hitting a different level of knowing or understanding or healing or whatever it is. So it never ends, this journey of recovery, but I have the privilege, and it is absolute privilege, of helping others reconnect, know thyself, heal. I don't believe in change. I think change is something we are conned into if you eat different. I mean, look at diets. You know, how many people go on diets and they don't want you to get better, because if they get better, they lose, you know, their capacity to sell you crap. So, you know, this program works. I mean, because dieting does work, but it doesn't stick. It's like, yes, it lasts for a while, but it doesn't stick. You haven't changed your fundamental way of dealing with food. So you can change all you like and do all the behavior stuff you like, but ultimately you've got change only happens on the inside. It doesn't actually happen on the outside. But that's just my belief. That's what I've come to the conclusion of. And, you know, I'm not here to tell anybody that's the truth, the whole truth. That's my truth, and that's what I help people understand, if that's what they're open to. But, you know, there's lots of different therapists, and rightly so, because there's lots of different people that are wanting and needing different things. So, you know, your job as a person that maybe wants to be helped is to find someone that you resonate with, someone that talks your language, someone that you can feel safe with, and someone that you're on board with. Because I know when clients come to see me, I ask them what they want, you know, and you know, because you can change anything out here, the people that are bothering you, but, you know, we change you, the person that walked in the door, and not change you, but try, and if there's wounds, then we heal you. And that is something you can do. And I suppose I've done it, I've been there, and I'm all doing it, it's ongoing. And so, yeah. So I think that's probably all I want to share. I don't think there's much more to share, unless anybody wants to really talk about something, you know, in particular. But, and if that's the case, then I'm an open book to a certain degree. And so I'm open to sharing whatever I can with whoever wants to hear. Anyway, I'll call it quits for today. Thank you for listening. Bye for now. Bye.